What's going on, everybody? Guess we had a slight change of plans. I was going to try and do a live stream, but that didn't work out because when I went to go live, YouTube said it takes 24 hours, and I had no idea. So that's on me, my bad. I should have been more prepared, but I wasn't. So here we are. I'm going to record this little video and hopefully can get it posted as soon as possible, as long as I don't run into another hiccup with YouTube. The truth is that this is all pretty new for me. I've never tried to really stream or do much with YouTube at all, but it's something that I really want to try and get more used to doing and more used to get more familiar with, you know. So here we go. I'll start with some news and notes, just kind of the notable injuries and things going on in the league. Top of the list, we got Keenan Allen. He's dealing with a hamstring issue, so he's questionable for Sunday's game against the Bears. It's being called a true game time decision, so I would definitely have a backup plan. And honestly, I would not even really risk starting him because the Bears have been a very bad run defense. They've allowed, I believe, 6 touchdowns over the past few weeks. Rushing touchdowns, and they just aren't the same defense against the run without Hicks, but they're still decent against the pass, but teams are still moving the ball down the field. So even if Allen does suit up, he's got to be limited with that hamstring. So I really like the other pass catching weapons for the Chargers, Hunter Henry, even even Melvin Gordon, because he's kind of been mediocre, and I think a lot of people are down on him, but I don't think you should be. I think he's a very talented player, and even though that offensive line is a bit in shambles, they did get their left tackle back. I think it's going to really help, and they're going to start to produce here pretty soon. Moving on, Patrick Mahomes. He's not playing this Sunday, and it came out that they are eyeing a Week 10 game against the Titans return for him. So hopefully he's back in Week 10. A lot of people who have Patrick Mahomes obviously are kind of reeling because he had a couple down games and now he's missing a few weeks. And you drafted him in the second round, most likely, third round if you were lucky. So, you paid up for him and you wanted those big Pat Mahomes performances, and you haven't gotten him the past couple weeks. And obviously now he's out. So definitely a big bummer there. Devontae Adams probably not going to play. I would go ahead and take him out of your lineups and assume he's not going to play. It makes MVS a good play for sure. You can kind of look at some of the other receivers, but I don't really love them, to be honest with you. MVS is the only one if you have that slot, but you got to be careful because that's a late game. So you definitely want to make sure you have a backup plan. You don't want to hamstring yourself and end up with nobody to put in that spot. So just be careful with that. Definitely keep an eye out. Be mindful of that. David Johnson is going to be out this week and probably out for the Thursday game as well. So no David Johnson. Fire up your Chase Edmonds because he's getting so much volume. Even though the matchup today isn't great against the Saints, for Chase Edmonds, I would still fire him up because he's going to get that volume, and that volume is really hard to find. You can't really just go to the waiver wire and grab someone who's going to get like 18 plus touches a game, and that's probably what they're going to give Chase both this game and on Thursday. So definitely keep riding that Chase Edmonds train and until you can't anymore. Alvin Kamara is not expected to play against the Cardinals. I think he's going to be back after the bye. I think this makes sense. It's a little weird. Another note, Drew Brees is starting. So obviously no more Teddy Bridge if you're trying to stream him this week. I'm sorry, but that's not going to work out because Brees is back. And I think it's a little weird. I thought that they should have just kept Kamara and Brees out because they have a really good, easy matchup against the Cardinals. They got their bye coming up next week. So why not just rest both these guys, make sure that they're 100% good to go. But then again, Drew Brees is Drew Brees. He's been around this league forever. I think they want to get their franchise quarterback back in there and their Hall of Fame quarterback back in there, even in an easy game. I think that's maybe part of the problem, part of the reason why they want to get him in is they have a good matchup for him to sort of get his legs back underneath him. So we'll monitor that for sure. Matt Ryan is not going to play. There was a lot of speculation on whether or not he was going to go. It's going to be Mr. Schaub. So I still like the pass catching weapons for the Falcons. I know it downgrades them a little bit, but Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Austin Hooper, you're still starting these guys unless you have some way better options, which most likely you don't, because those guys are, I mean, Julio's a wide receiver 1, obviously. Ridley's a 2, maybe high-end flex. So you're definitely still starting all these guys. Hooper's been really good. He even had a touchdown catch from Schaub last week. So you're definitely still starting these guys. It's unfortunate Matt Ryan can't play, obviously, because he increases their value. But you got to roll with these guys still. You can't just sit them. And scrolling on down here, looks like that's about all I have for news and notes for the notable in and outs for injuries and etc. We can go over and take a little look at the weather. The first game that jumps off the board here as far as weather goes is the Eagles and the Bills. Now, I really liked the Bills' fantasy options. I mean, John Brown, what a great matchup. You got Josh Allen throwing deep bombs. You got John Brown running deep. And you have the Eagles' terrible secondary. So all that adds up to some fantasy goodness, some fantasy awesomeness. But unfortunately, it appears that the weather is going to be awful. It says we got some 35% chance of rain. It's already, I live in New England, and I'm a bit away from Buffalo, obviously, but all of New England seems like it's going to be pretty rainy and dreary. But what's going on with the Eagles and Bills is that they're supposed to be having really high gusty winds too, so there's really not a good chance of a whole lot of passing or even kicking. It's really going to affect the game for the quarterbacks and receivers in general, because you have the wet, obviously, and the wind. And I honestly think that a game that was exciting on paper, fantasy-wise, really kind of became like a game not so exciting. Sort of like last week when you had the Niners and the Skins and they were playing in that the Mud Bowl or whatever people have been calling it. You had Joey Bosa and all these... you had Nick Bosa running and sliding and all the other 49ers. It was like a slip and slide out there. It's pretty wet, so, and, there wasn't a whole lot of fantasy goodness there. I think I still kind of like the run games on both sides a little bit, kind of upgrades them, but the Eagles have been a really good defense against the run, and the Bills have been a really good defense in general. So I'm trying to stay away from this game if I can. DFS-wise, absolutely, just stay away. It's not worth it. I just don't see any fantasy explosions coming. If you have to start guys, you have to start them, but I would really try and stay away from Alshon Jeffrey, Carson Wentz, Josh Allen, John Brown, all these guys. I would stay away from everybody. Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders. Try and find someone else to plug in, because I really don't think there's going to be a whole lot of value in this game. I think it's going to be a really boring, really low-scoring game with lots of wind and lots of rain. So definitely want to avoid that. Scrolling on down, most of these other games look pretty good here. Looking at the weather, not a whole lot to worry about here. One other note, the Browns are playing the Patriots, and it does say that there's an 89% chance of rain, so it's going to rain. So that kind of downgrades some of those players a little bit. You weren't really excited about starting your Browns anyways against the ridiculously good pass defense. The only thing I will say is I think this gives a little bit of an upgrade to Chubb. So you're already starting Chubb if you have Chubb. You're not really sitting him. Doesn't really matter what the matchup is, because you drafted him so high, and he's been doing really well with the opportunities he's been given. But I think this really gives him a bit of an upgrade, because they're going to pass even less than they were going to before. You can't really pass against the Pats, and you can't really run against them either. But I think just from a sheer volume standpoint, Chubb is going to have some value here, and who knows, maybe he ekes into the end zone somehow in an ugly game for the Browns, I'm predicting. I definitely really want to try and avoid the wide receivers on both sides, even Beckham. If you can put someone else in other than Beckham. Before, I was kind of like nervous and fading Beckham. But now that it's going to be really rainy and crappy weather, I would just do whatever I could to avoid Beckham altogether. Try and find somebody else to slot in there because I just don't see him getting more than maybe 1 or 2 catches because that defense is really, really good and the weather is going to be awful. So it's going to be tough to throw, tough to catch, etc. Definitely trying to stay away from the pass receivers. Edelman, I guess. I still feel fine about Edelman. I feel great about the rushing options for the Patriots. I mean, Edelman's usually short routes. You know, it's underneath slot stuff. So those are still catchable even when the ball's wet, obviously. And he just, again, volume. He has so much volume. So I'd still fire him up, but I'm not super excited about it. I would stay away from Dorsett. Definitely don't want to start Sanu because, you know, he just joined the team. He's still learning the playbook. I fully expect them to, line him up and get him out there, get him running around, get him some routes. They're going to give him some targets for sure, but they're just not going to be valuable targets. I just don't see it happening for Sanu or really anybody in the receiving core. I think, again, this is going to be another bit of an ugly game, lower scoring, I think, than people thought it was going to be, just because the rain can really put a damper on things. But we'll see. Moving on, looking at the rest of the weather, it looks like it's really only those couple of games. Everything else is either indoors or it's clear or just partly cloudy. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot to worry about. So hopefully you guys have some backup plans for some of those players, some of those people that you can't really start. If you can find somebody to plug in for Beckham or whatever, just try and find another option because clearly the weather is going to affect that game. And as I mentioned before, some of these guys have bad matchups anyways. So unfortunately, due to me not being able to live stream, I was really hoping at this point to have a couple people on the stream and whatnot, and maybe a couple questions about some start sit or whatever, just fantasy questions in general. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. We'll try again next week. But what I'm going to do instead is I thought it would be fun to kind of set a DFS lineup right here, do a little video for you guys, and see what you guys think, see if you guys like it. So I got my phone out here. I'm going to pull up DraftKings, and I am going to do a cash lineup because I think cash lineups are super fun and kind of a little bit easier. You're a little bit more able to be logical and just say, hey, I just kind of need to go with the grain here. I don't really need to do a whole, too many outliers or whatever. And when you play GPP, you have to, you play those big tournaments. You got to get some guys that don't have a whole lot of ownership. You got to get exposure to people that are going to go off, that aren't on a lot of teams, obviously, so you can get that high score, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just do a cash game lineup here. I think that would be a good time. So I'm going to go right over here to the live tab. I'm going to check out what's going on, see if I can find myself a good 50-50 in the NFL here. So go down and look at we're going to do classic, and we want to do today's 1 p.m. slate only, just the main slate. Scroll up over top here, and we're going to do the 50-50s. There we go. Let's see. Go ahead and try this one right here. All right, I'm in. So let's make a lineup here. Now, there's a couple guys that I really like, and I'm going to start at the running back position because that's going to be where I spend the most money. So I got to start with my running backs and then kind of build from there. So at the top here, the most expensive running backs they have CMC, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Alvin Kamara. He's probably not going to play, so obviously I'm not firing him up. And Todd Gurley, Chris Carson, Lev Bell. I like all these guys. They're all pretty good, but honestly, I really want to spend up. And I know that the San Francisco defense is a solid defense. It's been great, but Christian McCaffrey has been great. Even when he's played Tampa Bay twice now, he still put up good fantasy numbers. He didn't put up good rushing numbers because that rush defense has been the best in the NFL so far. He still puts up points because he's Christian McCaffrey, and I know that the blitz for San Fran is really good, so I could really see Kyle Allen using Greg Olsen and using McCaffrey as his safety valves, his dump offs, when he's under pressure. And he's been really good under pressure. I'm really impressed with Kyle Allen and how he's played. So I'm just not going to fade Christian McCaffrey. I don't care that he's 9,200. He's Christian McCaffrey. He's been an absolute machine. So I'm just going to keep riding the hot hand for sure. Now, the next best option really would be Saquon. I love his matchup against Detroit. I love his opportunity, all that. But he's 8,900, and I can save 1,100 just by going down to Leonard Fournette, who has a good matchup as well against Jacksonville, who is not the run or pass defense that they were, or that people kind of think they are in their mind. You say Jacksonville, and people are like, oh, yeah, Saxonville. They kind of remember that and see that as a really good defense, but they're just not the same. So I do really like that matchup a lot with Fournette, but I can go down and save a little bit more, save another 800, and I can go down to Chris Carson, who has a smash matchup against Atlanta. Chris Carson is going to smash. There's no doubt in my mind. So I'm going to save just a little bit of money here. I'm still paying up to a certain degree, but I'm going to save a little bit of money. I'm going to grab Chris Carson. So my running backs, I have Christian McCaffrey and I have Chris Carson. Now I got to start filling out my lineup here. My remaining salary is $33,800 with an average of $4,829 left. So I'm going to have to save some money at some of these positions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my wide receivers. Now I need to come up with 3 wide receivers, and this is where I'm probably really going to have to try and save some money. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, all these guys great. Godwin, Lockett, there's all these great options. But honestly, I got to kind of try and save some money. So I'm going to go down here a little bit. Now, a couple days ago, I really liked John Brown. I talked about that earlier in the video. Unfortunately, the weather is going to be terrible, so I don't think I can really rely on John Brown and fire him up, even though it would be really nice to be able to save some of that money. I'm going to take a look down a little bit lower here and try and see if I can find some good value receivers. It's a good idea, too, to try and be a little bit chalk, as they say. You want to try and find some guys that have high exposure, a lot of ownership, because we're doing a cash game here, and we want to try and make sure we're scoring close to, we want to be in the top half so we can cash. So I'm actually going to go back away from receivers for a second here. There's some names I like, but I've got to kind of see how the rest of my lineup shapes out, I think, before I make that call. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the defenses. The Patriots are 4,300, and honestly, I really wish I could spend up for them because they've just been so valuable. It's either you have them or you don't. So I'm going to try and pay up for the Patriots defense. It's going to be tough, though, because I paid up pretty heavy at running back, and obviously paying up at my defense here with the Pats. So hopefully I can still make up for that. At the top here for quarterbacks now, let's get that taken care of. We have Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff. I don't feel great about Goff. He's had some up and down matchups for sure, but I'm just not super excited. I'd rather go down a little bit. I do really like Wilson and Watson. I just don't think I can afford that. It's going to be really, really tough to fill out my receivers and my flex, tight end, etc. if I spend up for those guys. So I really got to try and save some money here. If I go down a little bit, Matt Stafford has a great matchup, and he's he's 1,100 cheaper on DraftKings right now than Russell Wilson, and 1,000 cheaper than Deshaun Watson. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get away with Matt Stafford here, since I saved a little bit of money there. All right, so it's saying that my average left is 4,680. We'll see what we can do with that. So I might get away with one great receiver, but then I'm probably going to have to really spend down. Let's take a look at tight end, get that out of the way. There's George Kittle, obviously. I would love to have Kittle, but again, I'm probably going to have to try and save some money here. Austin Hooper has a great opportunity, and he's 1,000 cheaper. Ingram's got a great opportunity. Ertz. All these guys have decent opportunities. Obviously, the weather's pretty bad, so I'll probably stay away from Ertz. Hunter Henry I like a lot against Chicago. I talked about that a little bit earlier. With Keenan Allen struggling with his injury and probably not going to play, and if he does play, he's going to be limited. I do really like Hunter Henry. He's been super reliable, so I think I'm going to grab him. And if I have to save more money, I can go down to Greg Olsen, because as I mentioned before, I was talking about how the Panthers are going to be under a lot of duress because the pass rush from the 49ers. And usually when you have that, you have a lot of dump-offs, and those dump-offs usually go to the running backs and the tight ends. Those are safety valves, and Kyle Allen has definitely used Olsen and McCaffrey as a safety valve, so I certainly wouldn't mind that. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look. I could also stack Hawkinson with him, with Matt Stafford, because I grabbed him earlier. Ben Watson isn't terrible, but I mean, he had 6 targets last week, but again, the weather is going to be pretty bad, and I don't like that. So Jonnu Smith is a really nice way to save some money if I had to, because he's got a great matchup, and it looks like Delanie Walker's not going to go, so I could definitely see that working out in my favor. But again, I'm going to try and spend a little bit more on this tight end spot here and see if I can get away with it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Hooper for now, who I think is, or sorry, not Hooper. I'm going to grab Henry, who I think is criminally underpriced at $4,900 in my opinion. So, all right, so I got my tight end. Now it's time to start filling out my receivers. And I would definitely like to try and find some value here, save a little bit of money. Let's see. If I keep going down here, DJ Shark, I like him a lot. He's got a great matchup. I could definitely see him having a bounce back week. The receivers for Detroit, it would be nice to grab one of those guys because the matchup being so good. But the tough part is trying to figure out which one's going to get the touchdowns. But I think they're both going to have value, and they're both going to be used quite a bit. So if I go down here and take a look, I like Kenny Stills a lot. He's got a great matchup. I could definitely see him putting up some great numbers. So let's go ahead and slot Kenny Stills in here and see where that puts me. Still have a pretty good average left. I'm going to go ahead and fill out my flex next because I have a pretty good idea of who I want in my flex. It's going to be Ty Johnson because he's going to have a lot of opportunity. He's got a good matchup. All that because of Kerryon Johnson going down. They don't really have a replacement for him. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here and find some Ty Johnson for me to fire up. There we go. He's $4,900. That's a good price. I like that a lot. So now I'm starting to get a little bit lower with my average left. I have 8,900 left with an average of 4,450. And I have 2 slots left to fill. I have a receiver and a receiver to grab. I am starting to really like this lineup, though. So far, I've got Matt Stafford at quarterback, Chris Carson, Christian McCaffrey, Kenny Stills, Hunter Henry, Ty Johnson in the Pats defense. I do really like putting a running back in my flex, by the way. Just a side note, especially in cash games, just because you have that guaranteed volume, it's really easy to predict when if you put someone like a tight end or a receiver in there, it's a lot more volatile. You don't always have that guaranteed production. You know, for instance, last week you look at someone like Marvin Jones, who caught 3 touchdowns, and then Kenny Golladay, who did next to nothing. You know, and sometimes it's really hard to guess, okay, who's going to be the guy, you know. So I'm going to take a look here at my receivers. I don't have a whole lot of money left here, so I do really have to try and be smart and frugal, get some value. Like I said, I do like DJ Shark a lot, but that leaves me pretty handcuffed. I'm not going to be able to afford him, I don't think. I really have to slot 2 pretty cheap guys in here. Otherwise, I'm just not going to be able to afford anything. So let's go ahead and take a look down here. Some of the bottom guys that I think are undervalued, don't get a whole lot of love. I do like Emmanuel Sanders against Carolina. I know it's a new team. Coach came out and said that they were going to use him a lot and he was going to get a lot of volume, so I like that, obviously. And he is a guy who can stretch the field. He's got a pretty good average depth of target. So I know he's with a different quarterback now, but I still really do like that. Auden Tate against the Rams, I do like that because, I mean, the Bengals are going to be behind in this game, just like they have been in every game, and they're going to have to throw the ball, just like they have in every game. And Auden Tate is a 6'5", huge target, definitely has touchdown upside. He's someone I'm definitely eyeing and definitely has that nice low price for me to try and take advantage of. But again, there's other guys down here that I do really like the upside of. And let's see, I'm going to take a look here. Someone that I really got my eye on will save me a lot of money. Where is he? A.J. Brown. There he is, receiver for Tampa Bay. For Tennessee, playing Tampa Bay. So Tannehill's in at quarterback, and he definitely showed chemistry with Corey Davis. I don't think I can really go with Corey Davis here. I don't think I can afford that. But I like A.J. Brown with the upside that he's got. And what's nice about grabbing A.J. Brown here is he's 4,100, so that leaves me with 4,800 left for my last receiver. So that leaves me with some decent options. I got Jamison Crowder. Not bad. That's got a nice floor. I don't like the ceiling, but he's got a good floor. Same with Landry. Landry's got a decent floor, even though, again, Pat's defense, crappy weather. I still think Landry is going to have some value. But, again, I would like to stay away from that. Christian Kirk is really interesting. I think he's going to be playing out of the slot a lot, like he normally does. And New Orleans is on their third string slot corner, so I could definitely see him getting some really good value here. And actually, it does show that I can get Corey Davis. So I think I'm actually going to switch that out. I'm going to get Corey Davis. And then I'm going to get rid of A.J. Brown. Get him off the lineup. I'm going to grab somebody else. So that leaves me with 4,500 left instead of 48. But I can still work with that. I still have some good options here. Let's take a look. Mike Williams is a good shot in the dark just because he has so much touchdown upside. I mean, the guy could have a 2-3 touchdown game, especially if Keenan Allen is out. And I'm looking at these other targets here. I'm not really loving any of these guys that I see. Nobody that I really want to take a risk on. So I think I am going to go ahead and go with Mike Williams. I really do think that that's a solid play. All right. Mike Williams it is. Now, this leaves me with 500 remaining salary, and what I like to do is just take a look and see if there's anywhere that I want to bump up a little bit, take another step up. I got the best defense I could have, I think. I want the